What's good? We back at it with another video. We here to do the sun in the 12th house. This is going to be the final video of this series in terms of the sun through the houses. So I hope that you guys, will find your sun sign and house placement and watch that video, as it should resonate with you guys. But yeah, we here to do this final video, like I said. So sun in the 12th house. We can start with the sun sign. Sun is a representation of how you self-express. It represents your vitality. It's going to represent your personality. It's going to represent your soul, identity. These are just some key words. Sun is also your father as well too. So the sun coming to this 12th house, this is going to be the area where you naturally will shine at. This is where you would, I would like to say, you basically self-express in this area of life, right? It's interesting because this house is actually, the 12th house is a very hidden house. It's a water house. I told you guys before that the water houses are the 4th house, the 8th house, and the 12th house, basically water houses. So whatever planets come through here are going to be more private, right? So before I elaborate a little more on that, I just want to say that this house, let's talk about what it represents. So this is the house that shows your dreams. It's going to show your subconscious mind. It's also going to be what you do behind the scenes. It shows past life energy, and it's also going to show hidden enemies as well. And it can represent distant places. It can represent institutions that are isolated, such as hospitals, such as jails, prisons, psych wards. It can show, also this house can represent sleep as well. So that's just some things to keep in mind. And also what we suppress and hidden enemies as well. Now, what I want to do is, first off, let's talk about this house, right? So when you have this placement, this is similar to having basically your sun in Pisces. It's also similar to having Leo on the 12th house cusp. So when we think of the sun is it radiates light. Now this house, I told you, is a hidden house. So this is going to make you a private individual, basically. You could be a bit more private, and since this is your sun coming to the 12th house, you need time alone. You need time alone for restoration, for sleep, to basically keep vitality. And the reason why I say that is because you're actually a sensitive individual when you have this placement. So this is why, you may feel like you even have to escape at times, and need space from others. Now, this would actually show up as you guys can, energy can play out in a multitude of ways, but some of you guys with this placement can be natural healers, spiritualists, mediums, psychics, diviners, astrologers, tarot readers, diviners of any sort. Actually, in this house, since it corresponds with Pisces, and it's kind of like Neptunian energy, Pisces rules over, like fantasy, dreams. So you guys can actually do well as like, you may be into like video games, because video games is kind of a form of like escapism, or escapism, entertainment, which is all kind of the 12th house energy. Even maybe fantasy, like being like a fantasy writer, or being in the entertainment industry, actually, as this house corresponds with Piscean energy. So let's talk about your father dynamic. When your sun sign, which represents the father, is coming into this 12th house, there's basically going to be some things that you're unclear on with your father. This can show you maybe not knowing him, as again the 12th house deals with distance. So it can show up as him being distant. It can show up as some confusion around him. Because you got to think of it too, like, okay, this 12th house, it represents what we're unclear on and the unconscious, basically. So that's why this things about your father, which is represented by the sun, to where you don't know, as that's normally what shows up. Now, I know someone personally. I'm gonna give you a little story. I know someone personally who has this placement, and this 12th house I told you earlier, can actually represent prisons and jails. And I know someone to where their father was actually, they have this placement, and their father was actually in, basically locked up. So they didn't really know their father, and that also represents kind of like that distance factor of what the sun in the 12th house would mean. Their father was incarcerated. So another thing I want to bring to the forefront is that I told you before, you're going to be a private person. As whatever is coming through this 12th house is what we kind of like suppress, and what we kind of hide, we may feel a bit unclear on. And it's interesting because this 12th house deals with the unconscious, but the sun represents the conscious. So there can be a battle of you feeling at times like there is a maybe a bit of a struggle between what's conscious to you and what's unconscious, or we could say ego, which is the sun, and the collective, which is like other people, because this house represents that. So yeah, this house is going to show up as your grandfather, and that would basically be your mother's father. Reason being is because your mother is seen by the 4th house, and 9 houses away is going to represent her father. So this is the 12th house. And it's also going to show up as your grandmother, and that would basically be your father's mother. And reason being is because the 12th house, the 9th house would represent the father, and 4 houses away or after that would be the 12th house, and that would represent your grandmother, which is basically your father's mother. This house is also going to show up as co-worker's spouse. And the reason why I say that is because when we look at the 6th house, when we look at the 6th house is basically co-workers, and 7 houses away from that, which is opposite of that, is going to represent your co-worker's spouse. So that would be their energy. Also, this can be like the siblings or relatives of any bosses or supervisors that you may have. And this is because the 10th house represents bosses or authority figures. And then this will be the 3rd house from the 10th house, which represents siblings and relatives. So when the sun comes here, all of these people as mentioned above, from grandmother, grandfather to co-worker spouses, and bosses and supervisors, siblings and relatives, they'll have sun-like qualities, like Leo-like qualities, in terms of what will show up basically. And this can make them actually kind of like center of attention, well known. Also take into account the sign that's on the cusp, because this can change the energy, but just overall very charismatic, life of the party type of energy, as this is kind of like what the sun would represent here. Make sure that you guys are tapping into meditation, spirituality, and again, just isolating yourself at times to restore yourself and your vitality, right? That's definitely something that you want to make sure that you do. If you find that it is hard to self-express, basically, because again, whatever's in this 12th house is what we suppress, with the sun's energy here, get into writing, getting into expressing yourself through writing, through it could be photography. This 12th house can deal with poetry. These can be ways of self-expressing, especially since you are a private individual. So yeah, that's just something to think about. And we're wrapping up this series again. Make sure y'all subscribe to the Scales Will Prevail YouTube page. And we got more videos coming soon. Y'all have a good one. All right, peace.